Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Skill Point Allocated. In today's, I was about to say video. In today's episode, I suppose there's going to be a video as well. In today's episode, anyway, we are going to talk a little bit. Well, I'm going to actually just read and comment on some articles. So we're going to talk about Microsoft claiming Sony is keeping games off Game Pass by paying developers blocking rights. We're also going to talk about Hogwarts Legacy, and it now has a release date, which has been moved from September to February. Gotham Knights, we're going to talk a little bit about that. That's coming out very soon, so there's supposed to be 400 years worth of history. So I thought we'll read that article and go through that. And, of course, FIFA on its last actual game after 30 years. So we're going to look into that article as well. I'll mention the authors as I read them over the articles and where they're from. And I'll try and throw all these links onto our Facebook page at Skill Point Allocated. So if you like this show, you can go over and like that page. Hopefully you guys enjoy this first episode. I was originally meant to be doing this with my friend Sarah, so I'm sure whenever she's ready to come join us on the podcast, she will come and join us at that time. I've been in some talks with some other people that have some very knowledgeable stuff about certain things, so I would love to have them on at some point when it comes closer to those games, one of them being Pokemon. They're super nerdy at Pokemon, so we'll see how this podcast goes. And anyway, let's go ahead and get straight into it with our first article, and that is from, the article's on PC Gamer, and it's by Rick Lane, this article. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Sony pays developers blocking rights to stop from adding their games to Game Pass, according to remarkable claims from Microsoft. Reported by The Verge, the claims stem from a filing in Brazil's national competition regulator as part of a review of Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. The filing, which took place on August 9th and is translated from Portuguese, claims that Microsoft attempts to expand Game Pass have been hampered by Sony's desire to inhibit such growth. Going further, the filing alleges that Sony pays for blocking rights to prevent developers from adding content to Game Pass and other competing subscription services. Microsoft's accusations come in the wake of Sony's own claim that Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard could influence players' decisions over whether to buy an Xbox or a PlayStation, specifically due to the massive appeal of Call of Duty, thereby stymieing I don't know how to say that word. Stymieing the competition. Microsoft, for its part, has repeatedly stated its intention to continue developing Activision games for other platforms, including PlayStation. There are two big questions here. The first is whether Sony is specifically targeting games to stop them appearing on Game Pass, or whether blocking rights is simply a proactive way of saying exclusive deal. It's understandable that both companies would want games hosted specifically on their platforms, especially as they strive to make their respective subscription services more appealing to customers. The other question is whether these alleged blocking rights have any knock-on consequences for the PC. It's clear that both Sony and Microsoft are keen to feature their games on PC. All the games currently being developed by Microsoft and its subsidiaries are coming to PC Game Pass on day one of launch. While Sony has been drip feeding its PS4 exclusives onto PC and recently expanded its webpage outlining its broader plans for putting PlayStation games on PC. But if Sony is paying for so-called Game Pass blocking rights, does that solely affect the Xbox the Xbox proportion of Game Pass, the whole of Game Pass, or completely prevent those games from launching anywhere other than PlayStation? Whatever the ramifications of these exclusive deals orbiting Game Pass, it's clear that Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard has heated up the rivalry between it and Sony, which all rather flies in the face of Phil Spencer's claims that he spent zero energy on the notion of console wars. These likely won't be the last shots exchanged between the two companies either, as Brazil also isn't the only country to be taking a close look at the Activision Blizzard deal. Both the UK competition watchdog and the FTC are scrutinizing the acquisition. Let's just hope this ongoing tit for tat doesn't inadvertently hinder the chances of any games coming. Okay, so all right. I got through that article eventually. And yeah, it all comes down to, are Sony profiting by paying developers not to put this on Game Pass? Because it all comes down to profit in the end. It's got to be worth it, right? You can't just go blowing money, keeping it exclusive, and you're not getting anything from it. But I understand with the Call of Duty thing as well, because obviously it is such a massive game. But at the same time, Sony just needs to make good games and people will buy their console, like they have been with Horizon and Stray and all those kind of Sony exclusive games. Last of Us was divisive, but Last of Us is another good Sony game that they've got such great exclusives that people will buy their consoles. So it just depends whether them paying these blocking rights are worth it in the end. I guess that would be interesting to know. So if you've got more info and you want to tell us about it, as I say, we have a Facebook page. Go over to Skill Point Allocated on Facebook and message me on there. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, let's move on from that to a game I was really looking forward to that I thought was coming out next month, and that is Hogwarts Legacy. Now let's get into Hogwarts Legacy, a game I actually thought was coming out in September, but is now actually coming out in February. So this article is on Nintendo Life. It's written by Ollie Reynolds. Let's get into it. Hogwarts Legacy, the upcoming action RPG on the world of Harry Potter, has bagged a firm release date, just not for the Switch. If you are on PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, you'll be playing Hogwarts Legacy on February 10th, 2023. It seems, however, that developer Avalanche Software needs a bit more time with the Switch version to deliver the best possible game experience. Through this statement could potentially have applied to all versions of the game, given it had a projected launch window of late 2022. Well, when I Googled it, I'm pretty sure it was like 19th of September or something like that. But anyway, it's now officially been launched for February 10, depending which platform. Obviously, the Switch version is going to come out later. So the so the release date for Switch is up in the air for now, and it almost begs a question: will Hogwarts Legacy for the Switch be a cloud version? Food for thought. Update as pointed out in a physical box release has been announced, but hey, strange things have happened. Okay then, that wasn't worth reading. Nevertheless, we are still looking forward to seeing how this turns out, and delaying a game with the goal of improving upon its overall quality is a big win in our minds, exactly what I thought. And yeah, so we obviously have to wait a bit longer for Hogwarts Legacy. We talked about the trailer when it came out on my other podcast with my friend Sarah called Trending Again. So if you want to go listen to our thoughts on the Hogwarts Legacy game, I totally encourage you to go have a listen to our first episode of Trending Again, where we literally talk about it straight up, after our thoughts after watching the trailer. So yeah, it sucks that you got to wait a bit longer, but I would prefer it come out like with less bugs and a pretty much enjoyable experience rather than just half done. So yeah, big. I'm cool, got the patience, and I can wait for that to obviously come out. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you're watching this, I'm going to put this video on YouTube, so you can let me know down below on there, or if you're listening to this on a podcast on Spotify or wherever you're listening, because we'll be pretty much everywhere I can put this. Let us know your thoughts on Facebook if you want to go find us on our Facebook page at Skill Point Allocated. That's simple. And we'll just keep moving on. So this next one is Gotham Knights building a brand new Gotham City with 400 years of history. So this has kind of been off my radar. As much of a bigger fan of Batman as I am, I was kind of meh, until I watched the trailer recently, and now I'm actually super excited for this game. So I'm actually really looking forward to it, even though it's not rock steady. But yeah, it should be fun. I think it's going to be a fun game, and I'm looking forward to playing as one of the four characters. I don't even know who I'm going to attempt first. Probably Red Hood. Batgirl looks like she'd be a lot of fun. I'd love to hear who you would love to who you're looking forward to playing as first through a campaign, if you're looking forward to this game. And anyway, without further ado, let's get into this story. Like I said, if you want to let me know your thoughts, make sure you follow me on, or not me, but the page. Follow the page, Skill Point Allocated, or comment on our YouTube video. Either. Let's get into this article. Gotham Knights building a brand new Gotham City with 400 years of history. This comes to you from RGN. The author is Joe Scrabbles. Actually, I really like to listen to Podcast Beyond. That is a PlayStation exclusive show, basically exclusive to PlayStation. So yeah, that's enjoyable podcast I like. Anyway, let's get into this. Our podcast, obviously, we're just going to talk about anything gaming, any console. I own mainly a Switch and PlayStation, but we'll try and cover Xbox as well. There is actually a pretty cool game coming out on there that I like the look of. Yeah, the game is called High on Life. That's right. That's coming out on Xbox. Me and another thing we covered on Trending Again, and that was the Xbox conference. So if you want to go check that episode out on Trending Again, that's called. Our other podcast was Trending Again, still going. It's still going. I've just recently put out an episode last week. I'm probably going to record an episode after this for Trending Again. Anyway, let's go ahead and actually, while we're on the topic of Trending Again, it's basically a show where we take 3 kind of topics from the week and commentate on them, basically, or things that we find interesting. Like last week, I did kind of a bit of a sciencey one, and it was about ocean power. So waves basically powering electricity to houses, and there's been an advancement in that for in Australia. So yeah, that was quite an interesting little podcast episode. But we've covered all sorts of things: the Grammys and Oscars, and yeah, it's kind of more like a I guess you could say a pop culture kind of show in a way, with some science, but basically 3 big topics from whatever's trending that week. So yeah, anyway, let's get back to the gaming and get into this article. So the article reads, in the 1650s, 5 families left Europe, eventually landing on a rain-swept island that pepper the mouth of what will one day be called Gotham River. Those families, the Waynes, the Cobblepots, the Elliots, the Arkhams, and the Canes, will build a colonial fort together and sow the seeds of centuries of dominance in the area. Gotham City was born. The city quickly spread beyond its original bounds, developing 5, I'm assuming that's boroughs, 5 boroughs, and in each one of those 5 founding families would take the root. In the early days, the Canes established themselves on Gotham's natural harbour, not known as historic Gotham. Now known. Not known. Now known as historic Gotham. I really want to know what I'm smoking. Historic Gotham. Tying the family to their new country's military might, building ships and weapons of war. By the 1850s, Gotham had become a major trade hub, helped along by the industrialist Cobblepots and their smoke-belching Southside steel mills. Gotham continued to transform over time. In the 1920s, the Elliots took hold of the 20th century's newest means of control, mass media, and built downtown Gotham in a new art deco image. By the 1960s, Gotham had truly become a patchwork of industry and architecture. The Arkhams settled in North Gotham, building their famous asylum. Yes, it's in the game. And no, it's not as you've previously seen it. Near the leafy university, the Waynes, meanwhile, invested their billions in New Gotham, helping advance the town into a new technological age. Which brings us to present day and the Gotham you'll be exploring as Batman prodigies in Gotham Knights, an open world as soaked in history as it is by neon light and vigilante-friendly shadow. Warner Bros. Games Montreal created that centuries-long history early in production, a whole new timeline for a whole new version of Gotham City. And it isn't merely window dressing. The timeline informs everything from the plot to the gameplay to the biggest mystery, the Court of Owls conspiracy. The team didn't just build an open world to play in, it's truly trying to build a city. Okay, then you got a some images here of time lapse. All right, let's continue on with the article, and it says, from Wayne's to Kane's. Key to this take on Gotham are those 5 boroughs and the worldview of the families that historically controlled them. So for us, the 5 boroughs, I hope that's right, what I'm saying. I don't know if it's boroughs or boroughs. But anyway, it started with the families, says open world level design director Christopher McMahon. The families moved there. They built imposing structures within those districts. So then we build around that to where the identity of those districts really is based off of that family. The result is a Gotham that drastically changes depending on where you are in the city. Each borough includes a signature building, the founding family's monuments to themselves, and each of those buildings informs a history, architectural design. Architectural design, I'm just guessing at this stage instead of reading. Architectural style and level design around it. Wayne Tower is a modern skyscraper set amid a landscape of high-rises perfect for surveying crime from above and swooping in. Cobblepot steel, on the other hand, informs the industrial nature of its borough, with squat, flat-roofed buildings and towering chimney stacks. Within those boroughs, the team tries to tell stories without simply having someone speak them out loud. If you visit a city in real life, it's hard to tell some of that history, explains McMahon. So because we are making a game, really what we want to do is kind of obviously reveal some of that stuff. So there's a lot of areas that are kind of stuck in time. Even something as kind of generic as construction, it becomes interesting when it's halted construction, or it's now abandoned and overgrown, or it's ruined. Although things are more interesting for the player than just the modern city, so we tried to have a lot of those areas where it's almost stuck in time, so the player can really experience what it was back then a little bit too, and see how the city evolved without actually having to read lore alone. Each borough includes a signature building, the founding family's monuments to themselves. That's, I'm assuming that's a quote. The team has or maybe it's the title of the next part of the article. The team has a historical and gameplay basis for every new environment. Take the cauldron built into the Cobblepot's lower Gotham area. We always would like to tell a story with every borough, says environmental art director Daniel. Gosh, I don't know how to say that. Anyway, Daniel K. We'll go with that. Even though it's probably silent, to be honest. Daniel K. And there's one specific one that is not necessarily related to the family, but is an effect of some of the projects that those families undertook, which was a mining operation that happened in the riverbed, so they decided to wall off the two sides of a portion of the water. And they dredged it for mining operations. So this had a specific consequence on the environment around it. It would attract workers for the mining operation. It was a low-cost housing. It remained actually a slum. The cauldron's history is written into its walls with a tumble town buildings and cramped, unplanned streets, all set in the shadow of a more prosperous districts around it. But all of this is a distinct gameplay choice too. This spot is kind of like a transition area between the financial district and the south side continues Daniel K. So we have two very different themes, which being in a third theme that is very organic and has a completely different way for the player to navigate over it. Requires a lot more parkouring, so the player always has the choice to pick the best tool and the best navigation verb to be as efficient as possible. And with different neighborhoods, that will give you different experiences. This interplay of history and gameplay can be seen across the city. The once beautiful Robinson Park is a symbol of the city's decay, but it's also an open space where your usual stealth tactics may no longer work in the same way. The enormous Elliott Center is a literally gilded reminder of the family patriarch, complete with a museum exhibit about the family inside. And it's also a complex, multi-layered bit of vertical level design built to house the Mr. Freeze boss battle later in the game. Just go spoiling the whole game for us. Why not? It's not just that timeline that acts as a history here either. While this is a new take on Gotham, it includes many references to the comic books it's drawing from. Of course, there are buildings you'll know, right down to deep cut references like Noonan's Sleazy Bar from Garth and its Hitman series, but the very fabric of Gotham itself acts as an Easter egg in places. One that comes into my mind is the way how the city was built, says Daniel K. The downtown area actually got expanded over the Tri-Gate Bridge, and that was something that was in the comics. I think that's part of the fun. Once players go in that world and actively see some references, okay, they paid attention to this detail and they expressed it in a certain way, or they rethought some parts. That's what I'm really excited about. Court summons. Perhaps most interesting is that this Gotham has a public history and a secret history. We already know the game will center on the Court of Owls, a shadowy manipulative group born on the founding families. Gotham itself will reflect the conspiratorial past too. One of the things that we love about the Court of Owls, aside from the fact that it's a new, fresh addition to the Batman canon, is that they represent a threat that is so embedded and so intrinsic to Gotham City because of the historical origin that they have, that even Batman doesn't know about it, says creative director Patrick Redding. And the notion of a threat that is so intimately tied to a city that he considers to be his city, that he knows like the back of his hand, that he's been patrolling for literally decades at this point. That's a very intimidating and scary idea, that they've been operating behind the scenes in the shadows, pulling strings, manipulating things, using their power and wealth in this fashion, and that they are quite content to just not have Batman notice them. That's a terrifying idea. So with that in mind, what we knew is that we needed to give you a sense of Gotham's history in order to be able to show all the ways in which the court is embedded in that. That feeling that Gotham is kind of an adversary in a way, and that the Court of Owls is the best embodiment of that, the personification of it. The Court of Owls represents a threat that is so embedded in... Okay, we read that part, so that's a quote. The phrase commonly used at the studio for this is that they didn't just build up, creating those hugely visible landmark buildings and visible stories for every new district, but they also built down. We started to imagine how the form of the city could be affected by that, says Redding. And it helped suggest an urban geography to the city going on all the way back to like the late 1600s. And then we started to think, okay, well, what were the major events in history that they would have reacted to? Is it the Revolutionary War? Is it the kind of exploitation of the West? The building of the railroads? All of these ideas became part of that conversation and allowed us to build layers of created history, and we built it up and we built it down. Like we said, okay, that's buried under the city. What are the hidden secrets that you can find in the course of investigating the Court of Owls? Naturally, the team isn't talking too much about what those buried secrets might be, but we see hints of it as we are shown Gotham's open world. A seemingly nondescript building might be a gang hideout, which leads to a tunnel system that brings you to an exit into Gotham you would never have guessed at, for example. Then they got pictures of all the signature buildings. Very Gothamy. We want the Court of Owls to feel like they are involved in everything, says McMahon. If you were to go to a major North city in North America, often they'll build a city on top of another one, like Chicago. Like they had the fire, they just built on top of it. Like they had the fire. They just built on top of it because it's not worth rebuilding, destroying, and rebuilding. So what the underground allows us to do is kind of reveal that cross-section of the city. So we have areas like that where you drop in, you keep going, and you see things that you didn't know were there. That you didn't know the city was built on top of. Okay, I need to start that again. So what the underground allows us to do is kind of reveal that cross-section of the city. So we have areas like that where you drop in, you keep going, and you see things that you didn't know were there, that you didn't know the city was built on top of. I think there's a really cool element often you don't get in most games. We try to allow the player to see kind of behind the scenes of the city, go under the surface, as well as seeing it from high, from the bigger landmarks and stuff like that. These underground elements won't just be tied to the story or sequestered off in boss dungeons. Some are designed to be a part of the fabric of the world, areas you can discover on your own if you go looking for them. We have a lot that's accessible early on, confirms McMahon. Some things you kind of stumble on later. A big part of it is we have the bike, and sometimes it's difficult to have a road. You know, I want to bust through this wall or something like that, because when players experience an open world, it's often like water flowing. You go through, you go where you want to go. You go where you are being led. So we have some that are like that, where it's just we really wanted to have a cool route. It's just we really wanted to have a really cool route from one place to the other. So we put a little bit of a network there. And some of them, we kind of treat it like there's a big space behind the scenes. How we cold. All right. The result of all this work is that this take on Gotham aims to feel like a legitimate place, not just a sandbox for spandex crime fighting. The team has taken into account real-life town planning, as soon as you add a rideable vehicle, you need to make sure the road systems work well enough. And it even use VR to aid construction. It was basically like playing a chess game, says Daniel Kay, because the difficult part of it is judging from all directions in real time if your skyline has an interesting composition and whether the player knows where they are in VR. It is literally possible to have your city on the palm of your hand, and you can use sight lines to place buildings manually. So we often exchanged with the level design team back and forth ideas like, can we raise this building over here, or can we lower this so we can see through here? That micromanagement of both look and navigatability makes for a city that wants to balance being big with being interesting. You shouldn't have to travel far to see something interesting or diverting. We've heard before that this will be the largest Gotham ever made in game form, but that's not what the developers are proud of. I think we've made a very big Gotham City, but what I think is really unique to Gotham Knights is the density of it, says game director Jeff Eleanor. Sometimes I will be searching for something or fighting a crime and not realize how close to me something else is happening that I'm going to want to interact with afterwards or before. There's just such a depth of nooks and crannies to explore inside our city, and I think that's really unique to Gotham Knights. The idea of a Gotham packed with references, miniature histories, and sinister. I don't think it's. I don't know. Miniature histories and sinister mysteries is alluring. After all, this is the promise of a town with real backstory that is not just the people living there who'll help tell you the story, but the city itself. Gotham has been many things to many people. It's appeared in comics, movies, and gaming worlds. It's been reinvented repeatedly, traveling through time with us, from block color 40s issues of Detective Comics to the grey monoliths of Christopher Nolan's trilogy. But all of those versions of Gotham have been snapshots of a city in its current form. Perhaps the most interesting thing about Gotham Knights version is that we won't just see the city as it is, but hopefully learn what it's been. So that's cool that they have taken so much time and thought into the city. That makes me excited. There's a bit of controversy that Batman's supposed to be dead in this game. I've been watching a few different YouTubers, and I happen to agree with this one YouTuber that thinks Batman's going to be alive. He's like, I've called it. Can't remember the guy's name, but anyway, I completely agree with him that I don't think Batman's going to be dead either. I think he's going to come out later as a DLC, as a YouTuber I was watching said. So yeah, anyway, we'll have to wait and see. I'm looking forward to this game. Like I said, I wasn't that excited for it at first. I was kind of like, eh. But yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to this, and I love how much thought they have literally put into this game. It's pretty awesome, and it should be a heck of a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm pretty sure this comes out next month as well. Actually, I might just look up the release date really quick. Okay, so the release date at this current moment is 25th of October 2022. So not too long to go. I think I'll definitely most likely play as Red Hood, if not maybe Nightwing. But yeah, and hopefully by then I might have a better internet connection or something so that I can actually stream some stuff. But at the moment, my internet is not the greatest. Anyway, I've got one more article here. And this is a game I have, not this game, but I've been playing FIFA 2022 a lot. So this is FIFA 2023, and the article is from The Guardian, and it's written by Keith Stewart. It's written by Keith Stewart. Wow, man, me and my pronunciation. The final FIFA after 30 years, the football sim plans to go out with a bang. It started with blocky players and electronic crowd noise. Now it boasts intelligent animation and specific movement capture for the women's game. Earlier this year at the famed Le Romaredra Stadium in Zaragoza, I really need to get someone to read this stuff for me. Spain, EA Sports organised 2 football matches, one each for male and female pro players during these competitive 90-minute fixtures. All participants, including subs and officials, wore advanced Xsense motion capture suits that recorded their every movement, shot, tackle, and celebration, involving more than 70 people. It was according to gameplay producer Sam Rivera. The largest number of players ever motion captured in a single session. Every year, the developers of FIFA tell us that their key aim is authenticity. This year, FIFA 23, the final product of EA Sports and FIFA's 30-year partnership, is about making key moments more intelligible, detailed, and dramatic, zooming in ever closer to the action at pitch level. That grand Zaragoza mocap session provided 10 frames of animation. Okay, got no idea what that is. Twice as much match capture as FIFA 22, allowing for more than 6,000 authentic player animations, a wealth of which are female specific. The data has also been fed through Hypermotion 2 EA Sports machine learning engine, which uses the mocap data to create new highly authentic animations on the fly, seamlessly filling in the gaps between mocap moments. This should mean smoother, more controllable movement on the ball. Dribbling is getting more responsive, says Rivera. The personality of the players really shines through. We got the feedback in FIFA 22 that dribbling felt slidey. Players were skating sometimes when turning. With the new system, they are a lot more grounded. Turning feels good, and the steps in between every single dribble touch are created by the algorithm. This means every step matches the path, creating better visuals. The designers are also enhancing dribbling's defensive counteraction. Jockeying, the machine learning system has been trained to detect which player is in between the advancing players and the goal, and then governs their movements. They'll usually approach the attacker from an angle rather than face to face, letting them tackle effectively. They even put their hands behind their backs when they are inside the box. Enthuses Rivera. Players will accelerate differently too, controlled, lengthy, or explosive. This means a player such as Erling Haaland or Vinicius Jr. will burst away at speed, but then slow more quickly, while someone with lengthy accelerations such as Virgil van Dijk won't be quite as quick off the mark but will gain speed. The idea is to break up the predictability of one-on-ones. It'll no longer be quite as clear who'll get to the loose ball first, or who will outrun an opponent down the wing. Another new feature is the power shot. When players hit both bumpers while pressing the shoot button, the game brings up power and positioning options for a controlled pinpoint strike. It's a risk v reward system, says gameplay design director Kancho Doskov. You can try it at any time, but if there's a defender nearby, they are going to tackle you. You really have to carve out that space, and even when you do, you have to aim precisely. Aiming at the top corner of the goal takes a bit of skill. When I try power shots, most of the time I don't score, but it's fun to test the keeper, and sometimes just because the shot is so powerful, he's forced to parry the goal back to my striker who taps it in. Elsewhere, EA is telling us to expect redesigned set pieces with aiming on the right analog stick, aided by a preview projection line, and defenders can now lie behind the ball to block low shots. And the impact physics have been improved, so a player's foot might be knocked sideways by a ball travelling at velocity, affecting their touch. Their virtual grass now has individual blades, and the surface degrades as the match goes on. Sliding tackles and knee slide celebrations will tear up the turf, leaving scars that remain for the whole game. At the moment, it's purely visual, says senior art director Fab Muoio. I'm terrible with names, guys. Sorry about this pronunciation and murdering people's names. But we've had discussions about whether or not it will impact play, and that's something we'll think about in the future. Moyo talks a lot about drawing inspiration from modern TV broadcast aesthetics. Just look at the real world use of drone cameras. He says, I saw some footage from the Etihad of a drone shot going all the way through the concourse and the stadium. It looks amazing, like CG. We also reworked out our out-of-play cameras to make them look a lot nicer when you have a corner kick, throw-in or goal kick. We've adjusted the depth of field and the composition just to have the player pop a little bit more from the background. It looks more in line with what you see in modern broadcast football with that heavy depth of field. The early beta demo shows all of these new details in action, playing as Manchester City. You see the first insightful runs of Jack Grealish and Kevin De Bruyne, and the amazing shot-stopping capabilities of Edison, attempting a power shot with Real Madrid's Marco Asensio gives you a real sense of its strength and accuracy. There's also a beautiful moment of animation fluidity when Borussia Dortmund's Marco Reus turns and volleys in a crowded box, arching the ball into the top left corner. A couple of hours of play show up more diversity of movement and interaction between players, and although the pace is similar to FIFA 22, it feels like there are a few more milliseconds available to line up ambitious passes. EA Sports has some big changes coming to career mode, including interactive match highlights, which let you play the key moments from important matches instead of the whole game, making for a snappier, more dramatic narrative. There are announcements to come from about the ever popular but also hugely controversial Ultimate Team mode. EA has stated that it will not be abandoning the loot box style, but random player packs that underpin the mode, even though several countries have either banned or are considering bans on them. Whatever EA does to improve this part of the game, including making it easier to progress without purchasing packs, the ethical quandary of the loot box will cast a long shadow over the entire game. Work is progressing, so when I play FIFA, I don't actually play online, so the loot box thing affects me in like literally no way. I prefer to play alone on my own. I'll just play like career mode or whatever, manager mode. But yeah, I don't tend to play a lot online, so that's not my area of expertise. There's thousands upon thousands of YouTubers if you want that kind of stuff. So I'm mainly gonna come at it from a casual gamer perspective. But yeah, anyway, let's continue on with this article. Work is progressing to on EA Sports post-FIFA future, which will arrive in 2024 as the awkwardly titled EA Sports FC. It's clear that FIFA itself is going to struggle to commission a new football game sim that will get anywhere close to EA's gaming quality and detail. The development team viewed FIFA 23 as a good indication of where things are heading. You can see by the amount of content this year, we want more. We want to continue going big, says Rivera. We are excited about 2024 and what's coming. There are a lot of opportunities. Responsiveness, visuals, authenticity are what will take us there. He'll only give up one specific detail that the use of machine learning animation currently confined to very specific areas of the game. It's likely to expand as EA moves into the next era of its simulation. There is a dedicated AI coding team at EA's Vancouver studio that have been working on this tech for several years, and this year's implementations go down well. We might soon see the end of scripted animations. I can't talk about the details of where it's going because there's a huge future features, but the potential that we are seeing is crazy, says Riviera. We can see how machine learning can take over animation in the future. It still feels kind of surreal that this is the end of for FIFA as we know it, a game that began on the Mega Drive with its blocky, stylized sprites and electronically simulated crowd noises, now features lifelike motion captures taken from genuine matches and an intelligent animation system that mimics the behavior of real-life players. FIFA has been loved and loathed. It has seen off one great rival like Pro Evolution Soccer Series and will soon compete against whatever licensed products FIFA can pitch against it. In embracing the women's game, it's doing the right thing at the right moment, while at the same time its insistence on retaining the loot box lottery of Ultimate Team will ensure that controversy as well as fandom will follow it into the future, but that after all is football. Man, I'm actually really looking forward to this game. I'm just hoping that's one thing that really ticks me off in I'm sure there's multiple things that tick me off, but this is like just a bit of a gripe that I have right now, and it's something like super simple, and that is next to the name, like when people score, instead of having my the team I made in FIFA is called London United. So, but instead of it coming up with the LON is the three things I've got for the initials. When someone scores, it comes up with like the team name like all jumbled. literally what the team name. It's like team name, blah blah blah. Letter number letter, basically. So like instead of having London United next to it, the same as in the news part, it comes up with a team name underscore blah blah blah. Whatever mixed jumbled letters and numbers it is. And I don't know, it kind of ticks me off a little bit that it's something that simple that can be fixed. But anyway, that's just me. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that annoy me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Once again, if you can leave them below if you're watching this on YouTube, or you can go follow us at Skill Point Allocated Facebook page. Either. I'd love to hear from yous. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I know it was a lot more just reading of articles. Hopefully I'll have some people come on in the future. We'll see how this show takes off, whether it goes anywhere. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed creating it, and I'll see you in the next episode of Skill Point Allocated. Until then, bye-bye.